Had very involved parents. So my father, from coaching football to both sharing the love and hobby of horses together, we were kind of joined at the hip all through childhood. I come from a long line of Morgans that all served in the military, from both on my mother and father's side. Through high school, I wanted to join the military. I had a very specific path. I wanted to become a paratrooper. They talked me out of it in high school. They talked me out of it a year after high school. And then about 2 years into junior college, it was very difficult and hard on the family, but I enlisted without telling my parents. And so I kind of surprised both my mother and father during the holiday break that I was going to be shipping off after the first of the year. After basic training in January 2000, I went to Fort Huachuca, completed my military occupational specialty, which was military intelligence analyst. After completing my MOS school at Fort Huachuca and becoming a paratrooper at Fort Benning, I was stationed at Fort Bragg in the 82nd Airborne Division. After September 11th, I continued to serve in the 82nd Airborne, spent some time in an intelligence agency in Virginia. In August 2002, I was provided orders to go to Korea to finish my initial enlistment, which was a great feeling for my parents to know that their son, I wouldn't call it safe, but would be in South Korea, in Seoul, and not serving in Afghanistan or be part of any invasion into Iraq. I completed my service in Korea and returned to Houston. For that next year, I worked with my mother in the insurance business and started to reintegrate into civilian life. And so over that next year, as I kind of reintegrated, I had a sense of guilt that was always present that I didn't deploy. Afghanistan had been going on for about 2.5 years, and it was clear that it wasn't going to end. And additionally, the war in Iraq, which was only a year old, it had not quieted down yet. So for me to get out during a time when our nation was at 2 wars, it was very difficult. It was something I brought home with me, the sense that I was given an opportunity to serve in units that were frontline units, and yet I didn't get to deploy. So about 1.5 years after I completed my initial enlistment, President Bush, under executive order, recalled 5,500 Marines and soldiers in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. And I was attached to the 415th Military Intelligence Battalion out of the Louisiana National Guard from Baton Rouge. The 415th was being reorganized as a Tactical Exploitation Battalion. This battalion was a human intelligence unit that was responsible for the human collections for roughly half of Iraq. A week into our deployment, Hurricane Katrina struck the New Orleans area. 4 of the soldiers in my platoon lost their entire homes. Due to a series of circumstances, I found myself in a position not just in charge of the intelligence section for the battalion, the S2 section. I was the NCOIC, the non-commissioned officer in charge of convoy operations for the battalion headquarters company. So for 90% of the missions at the battalion headquarters level that were conducted, I was responsible for the convoy operations, which means you lead from the front. Several days a week, we were required to go on convoys throughout southern Iraq. What was unique to us is in many units, your battle space is relatively limited to a geographical area. For a military intelligence unit that's doing human intelligence, our assets, our teams, our platoons are spread throughout all of southern Iraq. So often we would have to travel 4 or 5 hours to get to our destination. About 8 months into the deployment, while leading a mission in southern Baghdad, my vehicle was hit by what's known as an explosively formed projectile. It's a very rare type of roadside bomb less than 1% of roadside bombs are an EFP. The 75% of the time when an EFP is detonated, it would kill everybody in the vehicle. Of course, when we were hit, I didn't know what it was. We were on Route Irish, going towards the international zone and turning south to go to Fob Falcon, going right underneath an underpass. And I was looking over my shoulder because there was merging traffic, and I had turned on the sirens, and I was just trying to prevent any issues. I'm looking over my shoulder, and we were struck by the explosively formed projectile. I didn't feel the impact. I don't remember the impact. All I do remember is waking up a minute or two later, and it felt like I was at the bottom of a swimming pool. The entire vehicle was filled with smoke. My gunner was knocked out as well, and my driver, who had been wounded, was able to continue to drive the vehicle out of the ambush. While clearing the ambush, we started taking small arms fire from our 9 o'clock. This went on for roughly 30 or 45 seconds, and this is about when I was coming to. I thought we had been hit by an 18-wheeler or something, and it was my driver who kind of told me, no, we've been hit by an IED. We made it about a mile down the road before the vehicle just started to seize up. I had so much adrenaline running through my body, I had no idea that I was wounded myself. About 3 or 4 hours after we returned to Camp Victory, the adrenaline had left my body, and at that point, I started to feel the consequences to the blast. I was walking down the street with the battalion commander showing some combat footage of the explosion that our second vehicle had captured, and my back just completely locked up. I couldn't even walk. They had to get a vehicle to take me to the first aid station. The next day, I was medevac to the 10th Cache. The 10th Cache then sent me to Balad. The next morning, I was sent to Kuwait and received treatment for about 30, 45 days. By the time I was in Kuwait, over the last 2 weeks, my girlfriend had decided that she no longer wanted to be in a relationship. And then, of course, I'm wounded, and I'm seeing those others who had faced experiences much more traumatic than my own. It was a difficult time. Additionally, my wounds included a traumatic brain injury, and obviously I wasn't thinking straight. Of course, one of the answers and solutions to soldiers that are in pain is just by providing them Vicodin and other opiates to mask those symptoms. So between having a brain injury, having your heart broken, taking tons of pills, it was a very fuzzy time for me those next 30 days, trying to get my head back in the game. After about 40 days, I returned to my unit. Thankfully, we only had about 8 weeks left in theater. I wasn't able to do any more convoy operations due to my injuries, but I did get to ride a desk and provide as much leadership as I could and mentorship to my soldiers. Our battalion was very successful during the deployment. We were able to capture 70 high-value targets and 800 insurgents. We left the country in a better place. We truly believed that. Most Americans would not understand the amount of risk that the local population took to help make sure that our mission in Iraq was successful. On multiple occasions, they took significant risks, not to just themselves, but to their family, to their loved ones, to their neighbors, to provide us intelligence. I was not expecting that kind of experience, that the people wanted the operation to succeed. Our unit redeployed to Fort Dix. We began our demobilization. Everyone was excited to go home. The battalion left. I saw these buses leaving towards the airport. There's 4 of us just sitting at the curb, ready to catch a plane the next day. I fly home. I get off the plane. My family was there to greet me. And then I was home. I kind of scratched my head trying to figure out how I even got out of the Army. Typically, if you're taking narcotics, you would have had a medical evaluation board, but I received a normal standard ETS. It was difficult navigating the VA initially. You know, you're promised that you're going to get a certain level of treatment, and unfortunately, the VA just wasn't really prepared for us at that point. I incurred a lot of medical bills that weren't supposed to be there. I mean, we were told a year of medical treatment for anything. It was a very stressful 6 or 8 months until I was kind of rated for my disability. And since things were not service connected, I was being billed by the VA and received a nasty little notice from the IRS that they were going to withhold my tax return to recover the medical expenses from the VA. So I took my Purple Heart and Bronze Star and I walked into the VA and went into the Consumer Affairs office and kind of slapped that down on the table and said, you know, I can't even get my injuries treated for. I didn't have a network when I first came home of people that had been deployed. Most of my friends growing up did not join the service. I found myself kind of lost. I didn't really feel at home. Everything was quite foreign. I felt like there was something bigger that I needed to understand. You know, why did I survive this? Why am I going through the pains of trying to still recover from my injuries and the confusion of how I'm supposed to integrate? And I found a lot of peace that trying to kind of understand my faith more. I also was able to meet an amazing woman who would later become my wife. Sandra was eager to participate in me learning more about the Torah and she wanted to help me. And she had 2 amazing kids that gave me a glimpse back into humanity. And I really started to see, okay, yeah, there's a veteran community out here in Houston. Of course, nobody realizes it, but we have the 2nd largest post 9/11 veteran community in the nation, and it was great to be exposed to all of these guys and these different organizations, and it benefited me. At that time, I was starting my own insurance agency with my mother, Patriot Insurance Agency. I started in 2007. And we had a lot of success those first years until the economy kind of fell apart, and that was challenging to get through. 5 years ago, after kind of making it through the recession and things are rocking and rolling again, and I'm writing big premiums, I was struck with some tragic news. One of the soldiers that I took on my convoy operations, she committed suicide a couple days before Veterans Day. Unbeknownst to myself and many of those who were in the unit, her fiance had passed away, and on the 1-year anniversary, it was just too difficult for her to handle, and she took her life. That was a wake-up call for me that I needed to get myself back into the veteran service organizations and in the community. Over the past decade, I had been fortunate to write the insurance for most of the steel erection companies in the greater Houston area. And a lot of these firms had grown over the past decade. They went from companies with 100 employees to companies with 300 employees. Similar to several other VSOs, we created an organization called Adaptive Construction Solutions. ACS is focused on recruiting veterans, getting them placed in employment, and then provide them all the training they need to conduct their job. And it's more than a job, it's more of an opportunity. What we wanted to focus in on was creating an organization that could assist a company transform their workforce. More times than not, veterans have difficulties with their reintegration, and a lot of that is at the place of employment. They just don't feel like they have anything in common with those to their left and right anymore. So what we do at Adaptive Construction Solutions, after we hire the veteran, their first day on the job is training. After they finish their 96 hours in new hire training, we send them out to the field with their employer. They get to work side by side with other veterans. What's unique is these particular customers are committed to create an environment that's conducive for the veterans. So a lot of these veterans will work on crews together, where they're able to create the same relationships that they had in the service. Out of our 104 veterans that we've provided jobs, 8 of them are going through Veterans Court or have graduated Veterans Court. A more alarming statistic is 14 of the 104 veterans were homeless. This is, for the staff, this is what gets us up every single day. So veterans often can succeed in most environments, and they definitely can do it when they're surrounded by other veterans. But where they feel most fulfilled is when they can assist a community in need. This past August, Baton Rouge was hit with a horrific natural disaster, flooding that has never been seen before, a once in a 1,000-year event. For me, it was an opportunity to assist those that we couldn't assist 10 years before. And so at a veteran event, a cigar night at Little Jay's, a bunch of us are standing around, and we started talking about doing some sort of community project for the September 11th weekend. When we went to Baton Rouge, we wanted to be 100% self-reliant. A church took us in that had been vacated, that most of the refugees had left, and provided us shelter while we attempted to assist the community. We wanted to focus on those who were really in need. The expression and self-worth on all the volunteers' face was just amazing to see all these veterans on how they were impacting this community. So we decided that disaster relief was going to be part of our company culture. We were going to do it. We have great plans in front of us to where we want to take it. And as soon as we get back from Baton Rouge, within the next week or two, there's a tropical disturbance starting to pop up in the Atlantic. So within 30 hours, we organized a mission to go to Jacksonville, Florida. In addition to making sure that we were 100% self-reliant, so that we were not taking resources from a community that we were trying to help, we were able to put together the resources to provide 5,000 meals to a community in need. So 24 hours after organizing this mission and contacting everybody, we departed from Houston, Texas with 16 veterans. On Saturday, we were expecting to end our 12 to 14-hour drive in Jacksonville, Florida. But as the storm turned north, we decided that we needed to focus on the community that was going to take a full-on strike by Hurricane Matthew. So we were provided by the South Carolina Emergency Operations Center a mission to go to Orangeburg, South Carolina. The meals that we prepared fed those in need over a 500 square mile area. We created an environment with music and entertainment to kind of bring a community together. And we found that hundreds and hundreds of people, I think Saturday night we had 800 people attend throughout the evening. The veterans definitely understood the impact that they had on the community. As we left town, the community was there to send us off. We received an escort from the fire department and police department, and the fire department provided us with a water cannon salute as we were leaving the town. It was really cool. For these veterans, once they have the ability to be a mentor, either to another veteran or a high school kid or anybody else, that's when I really believe that we can truly start to heal, because you're able to pay it forward. You no longer feel indebted to anyone else or any other organization, and you're able to be rewarded by it. It's a model that most recovery programs focus on. To sum everything up that I have discovered through this journey is veterans are very proud of their service. It's something that defines them. And that's what ACS is about. We're creating that family, we're creating opportunities, but the veterans are themselves are then the ones who achieve that success. And that's why they can be proud.